Time for takeoff. Get out of here! Everybody stand back! Written in the stars.
Brace yourself! This is gonna hurt!
Tartaglia, or Child, is a 5-star Hydrobo character and Genshin's first character with a stance change mechanic, making him one of the most unique and fun characters to play. He's a very strong character, and his kit makes him a strong on-field DPS. Additionally, his AoE and burst damage potential is extremely high, and his fast Hydro application enables his teammates to maximize their damage. However, there are some downsides. His unique playstyle is difficult to master. His single target damage is lackluster, and his personal damage ceiling is relatively low. Child's normal attack talent is Cutting Torrent, which affects his normal and aimed shots in bow form. Child's aimed shots apply Riptide status to the enemy when hit. Hitting an enemy with the Riptide status will trigger Riptide Flash, which deals AoE Hydro damage. Defeating an enemy affected by Riptide will trigger Riptide Burst, which also deals AoE Hydro damage. Child's elemental skill is Raging Tides. Upon activating the skill, Child will enter a melee stance, causing his normal and charge attacks to deal melee Hydro damage. Melee damage dealt in the stance scales with the talent level of his elemental skill. In addition, critical hits in the stance will apply the Riptide status to enemies. When in melee stance, attacking an opponent affected by Riptide will trigger Riptide Slash, which does AoE Hydro damage. Using the elemental skill again or switching to another character when in melee stance will cause Child to return to range stance. The longer he stays in melee stance, the longer his elemental skill cooldown will be, meaning you should manage it wisely. Child's elemental burst, Havoc Obliteration, has 2 forms depending on which stance it was cast in. Casting the burst in range stance will deal AoE Hydro damage in front of Child, which will apply Riptide to enemies hit and refund some energy. Casting Child's burst in melee stance will cause him to deal Hydro damage in a massive AoE around him. Hitting enemies affected by Riptide will trigger Riptide Blast, which deals AoE Hydro damage. Although Child's melee burst does more damage and can trigger Riptide Blast, his range burst is more flexible and is recommended to use over its melee counterpart. Now, let's talk about how to play Child. Child's best role is an on-field DPS, an enabler who attacks in bursts. While the time he stays in melee stance can change based on his team, the general rotation he follows stays the same. Once off-field DPS skills have been set up, Child's combo should be as follows. Range Elemental Burst, then cast Elemental Skill to shift to melee form, and then perform normal and charge attacks accordingly. You should avoid staying in his melee stance for too long and try to swap out when his teammates' skills expire. Since the majority of his damage stems from his elemental skill, his talent priority should be his elemental skill first. Following this, you should level his elemental burst, then his normal attack talent. Child's best weapon is the Skyward Harp, while his best 4-star weapon is the Viridescent Hunt, for its grouping ability that helps maximize Child's AoE damage. Child's best free-to-play weapon is the Prototype Crescent. Be sure to capitalize on the bow's passive to maximize Child's damage. The best artifact set for Child is the 4-piece Heart of Death set. Other competitive sets include the 2-piece Heart of Death, combined with either the 2-piece Noblesse Oblige or the 2-piece Gladiator's Finale. The differences between the sets are minor, so it's recommended to use the set with the best substats. The main stats that should be aimed for are attack percent on the timepiece, hydro damage on the goblet, and critical on the circlet. The substats to be prioritized are critical and attack percent. Elemental Mastery and Energy Recharge are also beneficial. One of the best Child teams is Reverse Vape Xiangling. The 3 core members of the team are Child, who is the on-field DPS and enabler, Xiangling, who vaporizes her burst using the hydro applied by Child, and Bennett for energy generation, healing, and buffs. The 4th team member is flexible, but the most commonly used unit is Sucrose for her buffing and gathering ability. Players should use Child's downtime to recharge Xiangling's burst with Bennett's elemental skill. Another team is the Child Fireworks team, which consists of Child, Beidou, Fischl, and a healer. In this team, Child is the on-field DPS and enabler who helps trigger Beidou's burst and Fischl's Ascension 4 talent, which deals extra damage whenever the on-field character triggers an electro reaction. Fischl and Electro Resonance provides additional damage and energy for Beidou. The best healer for this team is Bennett, who can even allow Child to vaporize his burst. Overall, Child is a solid character whose potential is often overlooked by his unique playstyle. Although he might not be your typical hyper carry and has difficult to master rotations, this Nesh 9 comrade can prove to be a valuable asset with his stellar AoE, Hydro Aura, and burst damage. Thanks for watching this quick guide. If you enjoyed the video, feel free to drop a like. If you'd like to see more quick guides and other informative content in the future, subscribe to the channel.